we touched on quite a few things in the prep calls for this panel, but something that Susie brought up, which did really strike a huge chord with me, was around personal development and your network. And something that I've really noticed, particularly in the last year or so for me, is that actually half of my sounding board have taken jobs overseas and are much harder to catch up with than they used to be. So how do you kind of, keep surrounding yourself with people who can provide you feedback and support? And Susie mentioned having a personal board and some things that she, sort of how she approaches those things, and it was really interesting, and I thought that might be good to start with.
Sure. I'm big on the personal board, and the reason for that is at a key point in my career, I really had a lot of people around me that thought like me, that acted like me. I had a team that was just like me. It was like the Susie show happening everywhere. And I was up for a promotion, and the numbers and everything looked great, and I was never as confident as I'd ever been about that I'd get it. And I didn't. And I remember I was venting to my own group, and they were, in it with me. It was crazy. And I spoke to someone that doesn't actually work much with me, but knows me. And it was so obvious to that person that I was not ready, that I actually hadn't figured out the game of collaboration, the importance of thinking bigger, elevating. All of those soft skills weren't there. And it was a real great lesson for me about the fact that, I need to make sure that advice is coming at all angles. And so that's been a big focus for me. It's making sure that, yes, naturally there's people I connect with, and I keep in touch, I make it a priority, but I also seek out, especially being a foreigner, people that I don't. People that are a little bit older than me, people that are not just women. I actually joined a men's club as my swim club. I'm a big swimmer. But rather than going into kind of more of the female cohort, I went into the men's one. And I set up time with someone recently, and he asked, why, what are we doing? What's the aim? And I'm like, I want more diversity on the people that give me advice. And that's true. So it's actually something that I seek out to make sure that I'm getting advice that's not all coming from one place. And that's something I really lean on when I make decisions, both for work and for personally.
Thank you. So how about the kind of other people on the panel? Like, how do you kind of approach, getting feedback and career support and advice from your networks?
So when I started at Salesforce, and it's been true in other roles as well, I was net new to the business, and I'd been relatively senior in the previous business, but I was new to Salesforce, and there's 30,000 people Salesforce globally, so I was no one. And I had some advice from another female leader in the organization, and she said, get involved in things outside of your org. You'll be really good at managing your org, but you need to go and get involved in things that you care about, that you're passionate about, but interact with other people. Go hang out with the legal team. And that has proved to be hugely beneficial. They have a completely different perspective on the world, and generally they despise salespeople. So I've helped to bridge that gap too. But to get involved in other things, so I am actually, maybe a little cliche, I'm running the women's network for Salesforce across APAC. And I do think that we still have a massive problem in our industry and in business generally about acceptance of women being capable of doing the same things as men. And I said my mum was my hero. She taught me growing up that women can do anything men can do. She was a single mum. I'm a single mum. I think women are not given the same opportunities as men, and I have the chance at Salesforce to change the world. I honestly believe that. And we have these wonderful groups at Salesforce that we call the Ohana groups. We have this concept of Ohana, which means family at Salesforce. And I know it sounds cheesy, but it's absolutely true. We treat everyone like family, customers, partners, employees, everybody. And so you're encouraged to join one of these Ohana groups, which represent not minorities, but represent different groups of people who may not be well represented in the organisation. And so there's the Women's Network, there's Outforce, there's Disability Force, there's Bold Force, there's all these different groups for African Americans. And so I joined the Women's Network and got to spend some time with people who are in all different parts of the organisation, and I now talk to them about business challenges I'm having or issues I'm having within my team, or we're going through this hyper growth, and it's amazing to get the perspectives of people who are not in sales, who are in other parts of the organisation, who just have exactly like that, a completely different perspective. And yeah, developing that network, being on this Ohana group and doing some of the things that we do for women within the organisation and women in the industry, and then for not-for-profits, women who are escaping domestic violence and, shelters, amazing things that I get to do that Salesforce support is incredible, and honestly the best part of my job. But getting that feedback from people who don't do what I do every day, who have a different perspective, is so valuable.
Age is something, I think, in an industry that's relatively young as far as people involved in the industry. It is a young industry as well, being digital, and if you're in the programmatic space even more so. Just because someone doesn't understand what you do doesn't mean they can't give you advice and wisdom as well. My old man's actually a mentor. That's what he does for a job. He was in corporate for 20 years and then started his own business and now mentors CEOs and the likes. And he gives me a truckload of advice. He understands a little bit of what I do, but he can give me business advice. Some of the best business books out there, like Sun Tzu's Art of War, is a very old book that really doesn't have anything to do with business per se from when it was first written, but it's very applicable. So you might write off someone that's 5 or 10 years older than you because they don't quite understand, but some of the best advice I've been given is from people that are far older than me. I can apply it directly to my career.
Lots of sage advice for everyone. For me, something that I've been fostering at Atlassian is I have a very niche but also very common thing that's happening currently in tech, which is a design system, and every company is trying to scale. Big software companies, they all want one. I've spoken to the ones at Twitter, I'm speaking to REA, everybody but I'm building a network, so by creating a meetup and actually having conversations with other companies who are having the same problems. And I'm actually finding this hugely valuable because by no means, and this is kind of going back to my personal sort of belief about it, staying humble, we haven't nailed it yet, and I'm trying to figure out what other companies are even having the same problems, and let's talk about the problems and let's share them and let's have open conversations. And this isn't going to be a cutting edge in terms of a business idea, but this is going to be sharing knowledge and a problem space. And I think putting yourself out there in that way to say, this is what we've done, and this is some of our challenges, and then how are you tackling some of them, has actually been some of the most kind of fruitful conversations I've had in the last year, where I've gone out to the States and spoken to a whole bunch of companies who do this stuff, including Google and Airbnb, and we keep those conversations going. And so then when we're trying to do something like FY19 planning, we actually get together on a call and be like, okay, so this is what we're going to do. And oh, that's interesting. Well, we've tried that last year and that actually didn't really pan out. And so all of a sudden we're not in an echo chamber of like, do you think we should do this? Yes, we should do this. It's actually, well, let's talk to others and let's look outside ourselves. I feel like that's been really valuable to me.
I think something that I wanted to sort of switch into now was something that I touched on at the start around how we all work to implement and how we kind of manage challenging environments.
I came from, I've done the old school agencies, absolutely the churn and burn shops where, millions of flash banners all the time. That was my story. This is to your car sales. It's like when you work for clients, there's never a no. It's always we find a way. And I absolutely hark back to that, in my environment now, where I go, okay, how do we make this happen, but how do we bring everybody on the journey? And I think that's kind of the mindset shift that I've had from being in a traditional agency environment role where design was a service, and we were very much at an end of a particular portion of a development cycle or a production cycle where it was all about the output. Whereas now we're very much talking to our stakeholders and the rest of the organization about design and about our customers in a way that brings them on the journey with us. A win looks like where developers come to us or development managers come to us and say, what is the customer problem we're all trying to solve and how are we going to address it together as a team? So there is no longer this is your thing, you do this, and there is no hands-off trust. Everybody kind of has a hand on it together, and I think having experienced the kind of the Atlassian way, but I think it's also a way that lots of companies are wanting to move towards that. The open culture, the sharing culture, and sharing the customer pain and problems together. So then we end up walking the path towards like a shared company goal. That's been something that has been really quite a journey, an interesting one.
And Jo, having now taken a small business into a bigger business and adopting multiple businesses, how do you kind of try and merge those people into one group with different business operations and get everyone onto a common kind of vision or common goal?
Yeah, I think consistency in everything. Consistency is one of my favourite words. I love consistent people, even consistently bad, because you know what to expect, right? That's the key of consistency. So, consistency, I think you can never over-communicate. Keep communicating up and out what you're doing, what's going on. Simplify your messaging. So, this is what I'm going through with Datarama now. How do we simplify our messaging? How do we get hundreds of salespeople across the sales org within Salesforce to understand what is Datarama, what does it do, how do we package it up, how do you add it on to CRM and all these other products. And so we need to simplify, but culture is so important. Creating a team, I call my team #destination team. It's cheesy, but I want it to be a place where people want to come and work. And true testament to that is these 16 open roles. We've got so many internal candidates who want to stick up their hand and join our team. So create a team and a vibe where people love coming to work every day. Give people flexibility. You should all be demanding flexible working environments. That's the key to success. I encourage my team to tell me when they need time out. We have meditation rooms in our office. You need to identify when you need to work from home or from a cafe or the beach, or not work at all or work through the night. So culture, flexibility, consistency, and have a good time.
I'll just add one thing to the question on strategy and vision. It's 2019 planning right now, and we've been doing this really interesting exercise that's been blowing my mind. So we brought someone in to help us this year get aligned, because in tech, obviously, we're moving quick, things are changing. My microphone and people are coming in and out, like it's all a bit crazy. And we did an exercise that was very simple. It took us half of a day this week. We've done this before, and it's 2 questions for everybody at the table. What is our purpose and what do you do? And it's shocking what everybody between marketing, sales, comms, public policy, curation thinks our purpose is. And then what do you do? Like, what if you had to really boil down in 2 sentences or 3 sentences what it is, what do you do? And that was a really good eye-opener. We also did an exercise where we did Post-it notes for everything you do. And then someone else had to come before you read it to say what they think you do. And just making sure that everybody is seeing the business through each other's eyes and aligned on the purpose. For us has been really instrumental in trying to create that alignment. And it's amazing, we work it through and we get there, and then 3 months later we're back to different pieces of the puzzle. But it's a good exercise for us. It's been working well.
We have a process that's called the V2 MUM. It's vision, values, methods, obstacles, and measures or metrics. And Mark Benioff is our co-CEO. From Mark Benioff down, we produce a V2 MUM. And so he produces one, then his directs, and everybody within the organisation produces this V2 MUM. And it's live, it's in Org 62, so in our CRM, for everyone to see, so I can go into any of my colleagues and see their V2 mum, and it's constantly being updated, and it's a place for me to anchor my team to, and then all of my directs and their directs and their directs. It's a really cool process, and it's visible for everyone to see, and you see how people are tracking against their their V2 mum. It's pretty cool.
Yeah, we do the exact same thing with OKRs. It's a Google thing, but we absolutely have company-wide OKRs every year. Mike and Scott sit down, they bring them down, and every team ladders up to their own platform OKRs, and our individual teams, and we track them, and we have it's a living, and it's of course all open on Confluence. So it's really a fantastic way to get behind a vision. Talk about vision, and think about vision is not a top-down and here is a thing, you need to go and do it. A vision, you need buy-in, and so when you get those individual teams and squads and triads and all building together towards that shared vision, and they then track towards their activities, you actually all have that sense of like, oh wow, we're 3,000 people, we're all actually trying to do the same thing. That's exciting. Or we're not, or we're failing somewhere, and that's great. Everybody actually almost celebrates. It's like, oh, there's red. Why is it red? Let's talk more. Let's dig into that. Like, we don't want it all green. We actually want to make sure that we're doing the right thing for the right reasons. But it just gives us that visibility and context.
And I guess talking about vision and talking about a lot of people in this room, including my team, being at kind of the pointy end of the delivery of a vision. There are a lot of challenges that we will face, in terms of time pressures and hitting Friday nights and all of those kinds of things. So, building resilience and I guess buy-in and having a culture that supports that is probably one of the biggest challenges that we will face. And I wanted to throw this one to Sam because I know it's something that REA have done a lot of work on in the last few years. I think with some pretty positive results.
Yeah, big time. And it touched on the point that Joe made earlier about culture. I think it's so crucial, the culture that any company has, or team, if it's a small team or a big team, and it will, if you create a good culture, it'll then create loyalty from your staff as well. I personally had an experience a few years ago where I was involved in a motorbike accident. I was off work for 3 months, in hospital for a month, and Jonas was the boss at the time, and I remember he called my parents and my wife and said, when he comes out of his coma, tell him not to worry, we'll be paying him for the next 3 months, and whatever else is required, just make sure he gets back on his feet. And that was it. No questions asked. It wasn't and he's got to come back to work with this. So there's no questions asked. It was just, this is going to happen. And when I came out of my coma, I was a bit drugged up. So maybe a few weeks later, I found out about that. And I thought, that's pretty awesome that a company wanted to treat me like that and put my health and everything first before work. And so for me, I thought, look, I want to repay them back for that, and I want to show my loyalty to them. They showed it to me. And as a result, I've, wanted to. It's a great company to work for, but stuck by REA ever since. And it was a really cool learning experience for me. And so I want to create that culture for a small team or a company. I think that's crucial, that you have that culture where it creates loyalty from the people that are working for you, that they follow you in to whatever you're going into and then stand behind you. I think that's a pretty big part in the resilience as well. We work some pretty stupid hours in the industry and that, and if you're doing them and you don't know why you're doing it, and you don't like what you're doing, you're going to be looking to jump ship pretty quickly. But if you can see that at certain times you need to put in the hard yards to get an outcome, then people are going to want to work for you.
You just can't, it was what I was saying before, I think, around resilience. You need to know when it's time to take a break. You need to know when it's time to have your foot on the pedal, but you also need to balance. And I am the worst at it. Like, I am a self-confessed workaholic for sure. And I talk about, mentioned before, being a single mum. I don't want to work less. I don't want to work part-time. I want help to buy my groceries. I want help with babysitting. I want that kind of support. And when I have that sort of support around me, I know I can be more resilient and show up at work and be present and not have my mind on who's got chickenpox and who's got, getting that support. So knowing what you need in order to show up and be your best is important, and no one else can tell you that except for you.
Susie or Alex, did you want to kind of jump on that theme and add anything from your
Yeah.
perspective?
Yeah, but I guess, so I have 2 little kids, 3 and 18 months, which has always been a challenge. I think the truth about balance for me is it's always evolving, and if I'm honest, it wasn't something I ever could get under control without really doing the work and working with someone for about 18 months or so. The key for me to figuring out work-life balance was doing a lot of work on my values, on the things I really, really care about, on who I am. It was a lot of a deep unpacking exercise. And then I guess what I've learned with the kids is you have to then also combine those with your partner's values and figure out what it is we are not agreeing on about where we are in life. So it's an ever-going exercise for me to really take that time and make that space and really see where I'm sitting with what I want to be doing and what's happening. The other thing I think for me I've learned this year, my big learning this year is if I'm not reflecting as an MD, I'm not doing my job, because so much of tech is about innovation. It's actually processing, learning, thinking about all of those conversations and taking the space to apply them to how you're going to drive your business and your culture forward. So the hardest thing for me is, gosh, now I need an extra half day in my week. Every single week I've got to find this time. And it's been the ultimate journey to trying to say no. So finding and recognizing that new entrance of self-time is a real thing. If I want to be successful, I have to make that time happen. And that's the piece I'm actually working on right now.
Thank you. So the last thing that I wanted to touch on before we throw to questions was the concept of, when you're building out your teams or you're hiring people, how do you balance the EQ versus IQ? So, the person versus, what their kind of skill set on paper is. Alex, do you want to start with that?
It's a good question. I was excited when I saw this on the page. So at Atlassian, we're a strange, it seems cultish from the outside, but we actually have company values that we live by and talk about and use as emojis, and they are used in sentences, and they're really quite amazing. It's probably the only company I've ever been at that this has happened at. Mike and Scott came up with those values after about the first 40 employees, and the reason being is that they couldn't be in any more interviews, and they just wanted to kind of keep hiring people that could fit in with company culture. And to have those values, we came up with a culture. A values interview, which we still do. It's at the end of the interview process, and it's usually done by somebody from the actual team that you will be going into, because there'll be other interviews done by other people. And so what happens is that we have the values very much help us shape the kinds of people that we bring into the organization. And it's not that they have this amazing story about, and they can talk about each one of those values and how they live. That's how they live their lives. It's because people coming into Atlassian come from all over, and they come from companies where they don't have values that are the same, or they don't have that kind of environment. And so we don't kind of penalize people for not having those sort of examples to talk to. It's the desire to change. It's the desire to question. That's kind of what we look for when we interview, and it still really holds true in terms of the kinds of talent that we bring in. And I feel like that's culture is the building, is how we get to have this amazing company where everybody actually lives the values and talks about them every day.
Being someone who had no idea what media was before I started current role I'm in, and my boss kind of took a chance on me, and I'd like to say paid off for him. I did the same thing, and it's paid off for me as well, as far as when it comes to hiring people. I understand that it's easier to vet people just based on CV and discard, especially when you've got a lot of people to get through. But if you have the opportunity to get people in and get to know them a bit, you might find that they don't have the skills that you require for the role, but you can tell from meeting them and understanding them that they can pick them up pretty quickly. And it's far easier to teach someone something such as, it's not saying you can learn from a book, than it is to try and get them to have a good work ethic. And you can kind of pick that up in an interview. And I've done that, and it worked for me, and it's been great. And someone who's my team at the moment was just that. No understanding programmatic whatsoever, but strong work ethic, love numbers, and I thought, look, you're good, I can teach you everything about programmatic and advertise and everything like that, but I know you've got the basis there, and yeah, it was perfect hire and it worked really well. So I'd recommend maybe take a chance, and it might pay off better than just getting someone who on CV looks good.
I think you have to have EQ and IQ. To me, it depends on where my business is at. So I'll skew a little bit towards one versus the other based on the needs. The most important thing I hire for today is AQ. How adaptable are you? And to me, that trumps everything else. Because your ability to think, to innovate, to constantly be changing, which with the unfortunate world that we work in, an exciting but sometimes difficult world of tech that's very fast-paced and very customer-driven and constantly evolving. There's a certain skill set that loves that and thrives on that excitement, and their ability to adapt is ultimately the person that's going to succeed.
And I think values as well, I know this is also a bit overused, but understanding, we have pretty strong core values at Salesforce too, as you could imagine, and understanding your own values though, going through in leadership training, I've been through the process of understanding my own core values, which are integrity, equality, and determination. And when you understand your own core values and what you start to understand your motivations for what you do. And it helps other people around you as well to understand your motivations. And when you can start having conversations about their values and your values and where they're aligned or where they're maybe not aligned, then you start to get into some really interesting and productive dynamics. So I guess, how do you bring that out in the recruitment process? I always ask, what are your core values? Why do you do what you do? And research my company and me. I can't tell you how many times people come for an interview and they don't know why they want to work at Salesforce. And worse, they say, well, I'd really love a job at Salesforce or Adobe or Oracle. I'm like, no, not gonna happen. If you want to work here, tell me why you want to work here. And this is a very different place to those two other places. So do your homework.